On today's PMEA's Take Note podcast, we are taking the podcast on the road to PMEA District 5 to talk to the current district president. All on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. It's another Take Note on the road. As you can tell, this is not what it normally looks like. We are here at Hopewell Junior High School, just outside of Pittsburgh. We are in Butler County, Beaver County.
Beaver County.
We are in Beaver County, just outside of Allegheny County, and I'm here with Chad Toporski, who teaches here at Hopewell, but is also the PMEA District 5 president. A whole variety of other things we'll find out today. Chad, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for having me on the program.
Yeah, and thanks for having me come out here, because this is cool. It's good to be out in a music classroom.
Yeah, it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, it is for sure. So let's start and kind of level set. You know, some folks might know you, some folks might not know you. Kind of give us your background in the music ed world. You know, how did you get to here, I guess?
Well, I guess going back to when I graduated high school, because that's the easiest place to start, I think. I went into the Army out of high school, went for 4 years in the Army bands. I played French horn. Afterwards, I went to IUP for music ed and graduated there 2009. Coming out of there, I did a year of day-to-day subbing. I did a year of long-term subbing K-2 at Blackhawk Primary. For music, and then I landed this job, and this is now my 12th year here at Hopewell doing junior high chorus, general music, primarily 6th and 7th grade, and then I picked up various other things, and we just finished our 8th junior high musical. So,
all right, what'd you guys do?
Seussical Junior.
All right, how was it?
It was awesome. Kids did a great job. Parents loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's great, a great community builder to do things like that, especially at a junior high, middle school level.
Yes, yeah.
For sure. So I want to talk a little bit more about this military service. First of all, I don't know where to start. Let's go with talk about that experience of being in a military ensemble. What was that like for you? What's the audition process? What's the day to day? I guess I know that's 7 questions in one.
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
So I guess I'll go kind of chronologically. So when I decided to enlist in the military, in order to, at least at that point, I don't know how much things have changed in the past 20 years, but in order to get in, I did an initial audition at, I think it was Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland, with one of the Army musicians. Before I even, signed my final papers and went off to basic training, got a high enough score on that, and then went to basic training in 2001, and then after that, I went off to the School of Music, which is on the Naval Amphibious Base in Virginia Beach area, Norfolk, that's it. And that serves all the Army, the Marine Corps, and the Navy, which was kind of cool. But it's a 6-month stint there. Again, I think things may have changed a little bit, but you audition when you get there, you do like a halfway audition after 3 months, and then your final audition, and you have to score certain benchmarks before you can move on from any of those. So after that, I scored well enough on all my auditions. After 6 months, I went to Fort Lee, Virginia for my first duty station, and then eventually I went to Fort Bliss, Texas, which is in El Paso. But day to day, you have rehearsals every day. And usually you schedule those throughout the week, and there's lots of different ensembles. So there's like concert band, marching band, for like marching ceremonies, and then you break off into things like jazz combos. I played in brass quintet. I played in woodwind quintet.
So are you assigned into those, or?
Sort of. It depends on what instrument you play.
Okay.
Like obviously as a horn player, I was not part of the jazz band. Mm-hmm. But depending on what you play and how you kind of fit in, we even had, I think, show bands in each of the units that I was in. So if you sang or if you played like keys or guitar or something. So you'd have all these different kinds of group. Concert band was like the core group.
Sure.
But from there, kind of split into different things, and then we'd have different gigs and everything that we go off to, whether they were military gigs, graduation ceremonies, or whether they were things like, 4th of July or Memorial Day or parades or just community things like groundbreaking ceremonies or
Right.
something. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to pin down like a normal week because there was always, sometimes you do an evening gig, and so you'd get sort of comp time. So like if you did, if we did our Memorial Day parade, we'd have another day off.
Okay.
So like but then we also did like normal soldiering stuff, and we had other things going on and trainings and all that stuff. So it was a great gig. And then on top of that, as I am recalling all these things, we and the band were kind of self-contained. So as a unit, we took care of kind of everything for our unit. So administration, operations, and so you could have different jobs in these departments. At Fort Lee, I was in the training office, so I handled things like, just training classes, physical training, PT tests, training files. I ordered ammunition for our range practice. And then in Fort Bliss, I was actually the head of the music library. So I organized all the, handled gathering, passing out the music, filing everything. I ran a database, all that sort of stuff. So there, and you do all these different jobs, and it's kind of a self-contained unit for the bands. But so it's pretty cool because you get a lot of different experience going.
So, I mean, aside from the ammunition part, that helped train you for being a music teacher, I guess.
Yeah, it was really, and it was really cool because it gave me a lot of different experiences and a lot of different skills. And it's, I'm trying to think back, like, it helped me interact with a lot of different people. Playing in those different ensembles, having those different experiences really just grew my vocabulary. Sure. Going through the 6 months of School of Music, while I was there, you learned theory, you learned oral skills, so that, again, helped prep me for that. I started arranging music for brass quintet when I was in there, and so that kind of started off my, arranging talents or what have you. So yeah, it kind of just gave me a foothold in a lot of different things and met a lot of really great people. In fact, I think one of the reasons I went to IUP eventually was because I met a couple people who had gone to IUP. And I knew when I came back to Pennsylvania, I wanted to go to a music school and which one do I go to? And growing up near Reading, IUP was never on my radar until I was in the Army. So it's kind of interesting how the paths wind through life.
So when you were in the Army, there were 9/11 happened, right?
Yes. So I was in 2001. I enlisted right out of high school, so there's 3 weeks. I graduated basic training the Thursday before September 11th happened. So I went in pre 9/11, came out of basic training, and then while I was at the School of Music is when 9/11 happened. I remember being at the school and then them kind of getting us all together, telling us, and then eventually we just went back to the barracks for the rest of the day and watched the news. And it was, and you have a lot of stuff going through your mind, having just enlisted, thinking you're going to be one thing, and then and then in 2003 the United States invaded Iraq, and and so just everything changed. Fortunately, unfortunately, being in a training setting, we were on base the whole time. We had our own barracks that we were assigned to, but I heard stories of the day and weeks following that. It took hours for people to get on base because they were checking every car, thoroughly, getting out of checking IDs. Things just shifted. We even, as bands, our primary mission is music, but then we would take on secondary security missions. When I was at Fort Lee, we were trained on M9 pistols and I think shotguns. And even did a couple nights of gate duty and and I know bands that were deployed. I'm thankful we were never deployed. I was in 2 bands that were considered non-deployable just because of how we were built and what we didn't have available to us. But some bands that were deployed pretty much ran security missions, overseas, and so it's so heartbreaking to know the people who went in, this music mission were over there pulling guard duty for different areas or what have you. So,
well, what was that like? You're there, I guess, and then knowing you're not going to be deployed, but I'd imagine just in your head, it's like, I'm here and colleagues just like me are in this situation. What, can you recall that mindset at the time?
Yeah, it was definitely, it was frustrating, because believe what you will, like I was not a fan of the whole Iraq invasion, which kind of took things to a different level too, because then it really upped the game on everything that the military was doing and how involved we were with everything overseas. So it just like, by the time I ended my time in service, my 4 years, it's like, you know what, I loved it. I would do it all over again if I had to do it the same way. I got a ton out of it, but also by that point, I knew I wanted to be a music teacher. So there was that played into my decision. There were other things at play, but it was a very different time. I remember playing. We would play for when troops came back. So you'd go to the tarmac, you'd wait for the plane to land, and you'd play for them coming off the plane, which is really a great thing to be able to do for those troops coming home. But we were given like an about time for when they would get back, because it was confidential. So I remember some nights waiting 3 hours for these troops to come in. So like, it's nice to support. It was just a very interesting time.
Yeah, for sure.
But there was a lot.
Yeah. All right, so middle school classes is probably not as stressful as that may have been. No, I don't. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. So let's talk a little bit about that. So 12 years here in Hopewell. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes in education in this time. You've probably definitely seen a lot in the past several years as we've gone through, a pandemic. What are your thoughts on kind of how music ed has evolved, maybe in that time, but maybe more specifically in this couple years of the pandemic? Is there anything you've observed in this classroom with your students that is noteworthy, I guess?
Yeah, as I think about this, I'm trying to. I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush because I can only speak to my experiences. Sure. I know that the pandemic changed my attitude and I think other people's attitudes in talking with them, just towards, what's important. What are the big goals as far as education goes, as far as music education goes? And music is always there. Music is important, but there is also the student that is equally as important, and especially in middle school. During the pandemic, because we had smaller class sizes, like I had 8 kids in a chorus class, and it's like in junior high, 8 kids singing together at the same time. You're lucky to get, what you do because, just self-conscious. But, I took a little bit more time to talk to them, get to know them personally. And not that I didn't do that beforehand, but I just spent a little bit more time during the pandemic checking in with them. How are your other classes going? Seeing what I could do to help, what was on their minds, that sort of thing. And that has stuck with me a little bit more now. I build in more of that time to connect with my students, to ask them. There are some, like sometimes on a Friday, we will just sit in a circle and we'll have just a focused conversation on something to help build camaraderie, to talk about, maybe something important going on or whatever, just to have that community building, that social emotional learning, that I think is becoming more and more important and more apparent as we kind of move through this new culture of everything that's happening. And I think even just the self-awareness of, as a teacher, what do I need? What do I want? Like during the pandemic, all this other stuff went away. And I missed it. By the end, I was going stir crazy.
Right.
I am somebody who likes to keep busy. But I also rediscovered things in my life that I enjoyed and that were important. And it's like, let's take another look at how I'm balancing all those things. Making sure I take time for myself to recharge and focus on those things that are important, whether it's family or just relaxation time or finding a time to do something, go somewhere on the weekends, and while also making the time for those things professionally that I find important, and maintaining that balance for my own health. And again, talking about that with my kids and making sure they find that same balance.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you talk about, kind of it's the same, but it's different, I
Yeah.
guess, in one way. I've heard some teachers say that, I may have been the one who always said we have to do this grade 5 Holst piece with the high school band because that's what you do with the high school band. And it didn't matter if the kids have never heard the piece and don't have a connection to it. But now the thinking has changed to, okay, we can do that, but we're also going to do, what do you guys want to do?
Yeah.
And how can we engage in a different way? And I think that comes from that same perspective of, the word you said there, community building, that I think is what music has always done, but maybe now we're a little more explicit about it. And what you're talking about, this circle, like let's just talk, and that's another way you're building community through a music classroom, which is incredible.
Yeah, and being very intentional about it, Again, middle school students, they want to. Sometimes they ask me, it's like, oh, can we have a circle today? I'm like, maybe not today.
Yeah.
We'll plan one for this other day. But you're absolutely right. With music, during the pandemic, we recorded songs. They were super simple. We found other ways to do things. And I think that's still lingering, finding different ways to do things, incorporating different things into what we do, but also just that realization. It's like, yeah, I want to do great stuff, but I also want to do, I want my kids to have some choice. I want my kids to feel successful. And at the end of the day, the concert is always important because we get to showcase to our families and our friends and community what we have learned but it's the day-to-day that I think is the most important thing. How are we getting to that point is the biggest question for me.
And as I've seen post-pandemic, a lot of performances, for the most part, the performances are where they were before the pandemic, if not better. And I've got to wonder if it just comes from the fact of it doesn't matter what you're playing, you're still teaching the skills in the classroom. Maybe you're just teaching in a little bit different way with just a little bit of a different thing going on in your head of, let's try this way, let's engage you in a different way. And I think that's what a lot of teachers have come across. And that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, let's move a little bit out of the teaching world. So you still play?
Yes,
right?
I do.
You still,
yes.
And you're in, or how many groups are you in?
So I am, because like I said, I can't keep busy enough. I am the president and a performer in the West Hills Symphonic Band based here in Western Pittsburgh. Our conductors are Clem Rollin, associate conductor Tom Snyder, who is also the state MPA rep.
Yep.
So it's an awesome band. I've been with it for, I think, 10 plus years now. And it's absolutely wonderful to keep playing my horn. Like being a chorus teacher, I don't dabble in band too much, in school, so it's great. I play with the Woodwind Quintet as part of that.
Okay.
And so I absolutely love it. During the pandemic, we didn't get to play. Coming back to it, I'm like, man, I kind of took it for granted there for a while. So yeah, I play with the West Hills Symphonic Band.
And what I love about that group is, truly one of the greatest, wind band groups in the state for sure, but certainly in Western Pennsylvania. You guys do the quality literature, you do the good stuff, but then every once in a while, not that it's not quality, you throw in some fun, good fun stuff, and so your concerts are just a blast. And you all play at such, so you can tell we're in middle school, junior high. You play at such a truly high level. So that's awesome that you're able to still be involved in it. A lot of music teachers in that group
Thank
too.
you. Yeah, there are. Actually, the District 1 president, Aaron Kranzer, she's in that group. Lots of other music teachers from the area. Our high school band director, Kit Kuiper's in it. Ton of musicians. Like you said, a great variety of repertoire. Clem Rollin, the conductor, will say this all the time, but I absolutely believe it's true. We play a good, wide variety of literature, and probably one of the fewer bands that can really play like jazz, arrangements, because we've got some killer players with those styles. And it's just a great balance and a great community, and that's the one thing I love about it too, is like I go there because I can have fun. I can make good music, but it's not like I'm there only to make the perfect music. It's like I talk to everybody, it's a shared communal experience of making music and having fun doing it.
Yeah, true. Just knowing some of the folks in there. It's not all music teachers. There's accountants, business, but I mean, you have a whole variety of people, which is, so it is community, but at just such an incredibly high level. And I'm sure Clem just keeps you in stitches all the time.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, it would be worth it for that alone, I'd say.
It is a unique experience.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, check them out on the web because, I mean, if you can make it to one of their concerts, highly recommend it.
Yeah, thank you.
And you guys even do a great summer concert series out in the community.
Yeah, so we do 4 concerts during like the school year, time frame. We fall, holiday, winter, and spring, and then we usually try to book about 4 concerts during the summer. We do local festivals kind of thing. We try to do Bach, Beethoven, and Brunch in Pittsburgh downtown, like every other year. Sometimes in the parks we'll do concerts. So yeah. Come check us out.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, let's go back to the music education space. So, I hate to say you're a seasoned veteran, but because you're still young. But I mean, 12 years here, okay, and some teaching before that. So now, as District 1 president, I'm sure you come across a lot of young music educators, a lot of college students. There's been a lot of talk lately about this teacher shortage, which I don't know has truly hit the music ed space yet, but the numbers are slightly down in a lot of programs. We're hearing a lot of freshman classes are way up, but there's sometimes a lot of, don't go into education. That's this narrative out there, which I would suspect you would say, yeah, go into education.
Yeah.
But as you maybe come across young music educators out there, future music educators out there, what are your thoughts to them? Advice, thoughts, It's an easy question.
Yeah, really. So there's a lot of directions I could go. I think thinking back just on my time, I think one of the biggest things for me is no year for me, no class for me has ever been the same, and I think you will never reach a destination with your teaching. I'm a big proponent of continual learning. It's just my personality. So this couldn't be advice to myself because I already do it. But but if I were to give advice to somebody else, don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop challenging yourself. Don't ever stop wondering about things. Don't ever limit yourself because you think you can't do something. Figure out how to do it. Over the past 12 years, like I said, I've been different every single year. I've taught different things. My curriculum has changed. I feel like I've kind of got a groove with my choral teaching and the sight singing techniques that I use and the curriculum that I have there. But even then, I'm tweaking it every year. My general music classes this year, I have picked up modern band. I got guitars through a grant last year. And I just got another grant this year to pick up a bass guitar and a drum set. So slowly building that. But I literally got a guitar for my birthday in February this past year, and that's the first time I started playing guitar myself. So it's I had started actually learning ukulele with one of my chorus classes because they wanted to play ukulele for a song they're doing. So I'm like, all right, I'll learn with you. And then it's like, all right,
what a cool lesson for the kids to see you learning with them.
Yeah, and I tell my 6th graders, I'm still learning too, and it's great because they see me make mistakes. It gives them a little bit of comfort to make their own mistakes, which they're always nervous about. But and it's been great fun, and it's incorporating this new idea, and the kids are loving it. And I've got a couple blocks during the day where 6th graders can come down for a modern band lab where they can just we'll focus on guitar. We'll do something in that vein, and kids keep on coming, and they're not. Most of them are not necessarily the chorus or band kids. It's these other kids that are coming down. But yeah, never stop learning. And I'm a big podcast junkie, so I also listen to podcasts, and I'm a big fan of technology, but also sociology and psychology, and just listening to that, it helps me. How am I interacting with my colleagues or my students, or learning how other people think. working with musical, I learned how to do lights for the musical because, you know, but I mean, that's me. You know, I'm gonna do all those things because I have that's my personality, is to just learn. But I think that's really good advice for anybody. You know, never stop learning. Never stop thinking you've made it. Always, you know, how can I make this a little better? Or, you know, ooh, what about this? Go to professional development. You know, PMEA has been a great source for different things, and I often don't, you know, come back from a seminar taking everything, but I'm like, ooh, you know what, that little piece of it, I'm going to try it.
Sure.
And if it doesn't work, I'll try something different. But yeah, I think that would be my number one advice. It is a continual journey, and I'm sure in 10 years I will be completely different from where I am today. Just, you know, because that's how things happen.
Well, you know, it's interesting if you think about, you know, all due respect to the math teachers, 3 times 3 is always going to be the same answer, right? And yes, in music, a quarter note's always going to be a quarter note. But some of the things you've described is, you know, look how you've evolved by adding a modern band component. So that's not only adding something for the students here, that's added so much for you. And this idea of this lifelong learning and this, you know, what can I pick up here, what can I pick up there, you know, it is really crucial to be versatile because who knows what, you have to be open to that, right? Because would you have thought 10 years ago, I'm going to be teaching something called modern band? No. 10 years ago, nobody knew what that was, you know, right? You know, would you thought, okay, I'm going to be doing guitar? Probably not.
No.
Ukulele, I'm sure you would definitely know that. So who knows what that is in 10 years? So, I mean, just to pick up on your point of, you know, if you're out there, you know, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I mean, like, if you're a college student just graduating or you've been teaching for 25 years, you can take something away from continuing to learn something because who knows what's going to engage that kid sitting in that chair or the one in that chair.
Well, and coming back to the pandemic, I mean, a lot of us had to learn some different things about technology that we never learned before. One of the things I actually started doing that year is I learned a little bit more about mixing because I had my kids, you know, submit videos, and I did some of those virtual choirs. I actually even did one for PMEA. A lot of the course teachers in District 5, we did a virtual choir, which turned out fantastic. But you know, sometimes you're forced into that learning environment. This job, I came out of college hoping I would be a band director, you know, and it's like, oh, chorus. I'm like, okay, I sang throughout high school. You know, I've experienced singing, but never trained, you know, one-on-one, you know, in college. But I've learned a lot. I've, you know, gone to classes. I did like, was it the Duquesne had a summer seminar, the Kaleidoscope, you know, have gone to PMEA, professional developments, and just keep picking up more, you know. And so, you know, never sell yourself short and be adaptable, you know, learn.
So let me pick up on one other point there. Before we started recording, I said, like, is this the gig? Like, is this what you like? And you said, yeah, I love this. This is what I like. And now you just make that comment, boy, when I, you know, graduated, I wanted to be a high school band director. And I think a lot of people go, in not only in music, but in whatever degree they go in, I want to do X, Y, Z. But particularly in music, they want to go out and teach an environment that was just like their high school. That's generally what it was. If they want to be the choir director, they want to be the band director, whatever it is, the orchestra director. And you're like the perfect example to tell college students, like, look, you need to take advantage of everything because you don't know what you're going to end up in, and then you may end up absolutely loving it.
Right, exactly. You know, there's not much more to say about that because it's kind of a case in point, and just being open to that possibility, even when you're applying for jobs. The great Tom Snyder, he told me way back when I was, he said, it's easier to get a job if you have a job, you know, and that's kind of also a good mentality. You know, find that first job. You know, you never know what is going to happen, whether you're going to end up liking it or not, and if you don't, you know, you can keep looking, but at the same time, give yourself that opportunity to, you know, maybe discover something that you didn't know you love. And that's it. I love middle school. The age group they're fun, they're quirky. You can still talk to them, but they're still impressionable. You know, you can help guide them a little bit more. You know, Elementary school is a little bit more like,
Yeah.
I don't know how, I think elementary school teachers deserve more money than we do because it's like constant, nonstop, but God bless them. But like, in high school, kids are a little more like jaded or, they're a little bit more standoffish sometimes. Usually kids are a little bit better. But I feel like middle school is really where you can work with those kids and help them through some of the most awkward times in their life. I guess being a little awkward myself, that probably helps.
Well, but the other thing that's funny you say, like I think if you would go and interview a high school band director or any high school teacher who, they would say, high school's it. This is where I want to be. I could never do middle school or elementary. You go to an elementary school who's just killing it in their job, and they'd say, I could never do middle school, and I could certainly never do high school, which I think speaks to then like you are in the right place.
Yeah.
Because that's your fit. These are the students that fit your personality and what works best for you.
I think that's true. I think everybody has kind of their niche that they fit into, and if you can find that, that's golden.
And isn't that kind of like speaks to what music is? Because maybe we all found our niche in music somewhere. Like anyone who even remotely watches or listens to this podcast at all knows that like I'm big into high school marching band.
Yeah.
So like that was my niche in high school, and is something that I've followed along. Like I had no interest in choir or anything like that, but there are people who that was their thing, and I think that just speaks to this breadth of what music can do for people.
Oh yeah,
it's incredible.
So I tell my kids, there's something for everybody.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. Well, Chad, thanks for taking some time to chat with us. This was fascinating. We love to profile PMEA members, and I'm glad we could find some time to do it between all of the things that you're doing. On top of, you're the PMEA District 5 president, which, believe me, if you've never been in this role, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do, especially as we come around to festival season. So
it's rewarding. Though.
It is,
and
yeah.
I work with great people. I think District 5 is some of the best people in the state. Volunteering their time.
Yeah, and so we do appreciate the volunteer work you do and the volunteer work that they all do.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having us out here today.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to all of you for joining us on this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. And we want to thank our sponsor, the Grove City College Department of Music. We'll see you next time.